Imagine tearing a plant to shreds, like completely destroying
Oh,
it.
yeah, it's totally ruining it.
Right. And then you just lazily shove the broken pieces into the dirt. You ignore every established rule of horticulture, and somehow you create new life.
I mean, it sounds completely impossible.
It does. But welcome to our custom-tailored deep dive today, because we are looking at a dispatch from a gardener who did exactly that.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating case study.
It really is. We're pulling our insights from a single journal entry published on July 24, 2026 by a writer and gardener named Ang. The post is literally titled, Notes on Gardening, Part 965, Unintentional Floss Flower Propagation by Cuttings.
Right, and for those of you following along, the floss flower also goes by its botanical tag, Ageratum.
Okay, let's unpack this because, I mean, Part 965, I just have to pause and marvel at that number for a second.
It's staggering, honestly.
Right. The text literally opens with the words, continues from my previous post, and it's addressed to Dear Interweb. So we are dropping headfirst into the middle of this massive, dedicated, ongoing life project.
Exactly. We aren't getting the polished beginning or the grand finale here.
No, we're just getting a raw, everyday window into someone's meticulous dedication to a craft.
We are looking at a single data point on a very long timeline of observation. And the catalyst for today's entry is just a perfect example of how chaos disrupts even the most meticulous timelines.
Oh, absolutely. Nature always has its own plans.
It does. Ang writes that due to strong tropical winds, a floss flower plant in their garden was knocked over and severely damaged, which left them with just a handful of broken stems.
Which is so heartbreaking if you're a gardener.
Yeah, and this is the inciting incident of the text. It's this sudden destructive weather event that completely upends the status quo of the garden.
Right.
So the goal of our deep dive today is to explore the incredible tension created by that storm. We are going to examine the friction between Ang's completely accidental, surprisingly successful, and frankly lazy propagation method, and their ultimate, highly self-aware realization that success doesn't always equal a good fit.
I love that framing because Ang's immediate reaction to the destruction is just so counterintuitive.
It really defies standard logic.
It does. So the windstorm leaves them with a pile of broken stems. Now, typically, if you're going to propagate a plant from a cutting, you are trying to minimize the stress on the plant.
Right, you have to be very careful.
Yeah, you'd strip away the bottom leaves, maybe cut the stem down in size. Also, so the cutting doesn't have to work too hard to support a massive structure while it is simultaneously trying to grow new roots.
Because standard logic dictates that a cutting with too many leaves will simply lose moisture faster than it can take it in.
Exactly, it would just dry out.
Yeah, it dries out and dies. Every traditional step in propagation is about managing that delicate energy balance.
But Aang completely ignores that logic. I mean, they write, taking this opportunity, I decided to propagate the long stems whole without even removing the bottom leaves or cutting them in half.
They just went for it.
They literally just shoved the giant, leafy, broken branches directly into a pot.
It's incredibly bold.
It's like dropping a tray of raw ingredients on the floor, shoving it into the oven without reading the recipe, and somehow pulling out a Michelin star cake. It completely bypasses all the required effort.
What's fascinating here is Ang's explicit phrasing. By deliberately noting that they did not remove the bottom leaves and did not cut the stems in half, Ang is fully acknowledging they are breaking the unspoken rules of this process.
They know exactly what they're not doing.
Right. The phrase taking this opportunity implies this wasn't some desperate emergency rescue mission to save a beloved plant. It was a conscious, opportunistic shortcut.
Just an experiment born out of pure convenience.
Exactly. The plant was already broken, the pieces were right there in their hand, and they just decided to bypass the tedious preparation to see what the universe would do.
It is the ultimate shrug of the shoulders. Like, why not? And against all logic, it works. To Aang's complete amazement, these massive cuttings actually thrive.
Which is a huge surprise.
It is. And it makes you think about your own life, you know? Like, how often do you follow the exact rules of a process, meticulously checking every box, stressing over every tiny detail, versus just winging it like Aang did here and letting the chips fall where they may?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
Because sometimes the shortcuts we take out of pure convenience end up yielding the most surprising results.
They absolutely can. However, we do have to look closely at the text to understand why this specific shortcut worked. Because biology usually demands its rules be followed.
Right. There's usually a scientific reason behind a success like this.
Yeah. In most scenarios, jamming a long, leafy, broken stem into the dirt is just a guaranteed death sentence for the plant. But Ang's cuttings survive because of a very specific, completely accidental combination of environmental variables.
Okay, so what were those variables?
Well, Ang credits two distinct factors for this miraculous survival. First, numerous heavy downpours that week, combined with, quote, a rather sandy potting mix.
Okay, wait, let me think about this. If you have a broken stem and you leave all the bottom leaves on it, and you bury those leaves in the dirt, and then subject that pot to days of heavy torrential downpours,
Yeah, what would normally happen?
shouldn't the whole thing just turn to mush? I mean, buried organic matter plus constant heavy rain usually equals rapid rot. Those leaves should have just decayed and killed the whole cutting.
That's exactly what you would expect.
Unless the sandy potting mix changes the equation somehow.
Keep going with that thought. You're on the right track.
Well, sand is loose, right? It doesn't pack together tightly and hold water like clay or heavy soil does. It acts more like a sieve.
Spot on.
So if the heavy rain is falling, but the pot is full of sandy mix, the water isn't pooling and suffocating the buried leaves, it's draining rapidly.
Exactly.
It's like a coffee percolator. The water flushes through the loose grounds and out the bottom rather than sitting stagnant and turning everything to sludge.
You've completely decoded the mechanics of it. The heavy rain provided the constant, high-volume hydration that a massive, unpruned stem desperately needed.
Because it was losing water so fast through all those leaves.
Right. Because Ang left all those leaves on the stem, the plant was losing moisture rapidly and needed a continuous shower just to stay alive. But, as you pointed out, the sandy mix provided the rapid drainage necessary to prevent rot from taking hold in the buried leaves.
It really is an accidental perfect storm.
It was a completely accidental, perfect synergy of chaotic weather and arbitrary soil choice. One without the other would have meant total failure.
Right. If they had the rain without the sand, the cutting would have rotted.
Yes, and if they had the sand without the rain, the massive stem would have dried up. Together, they created a flawless, improvised propagation chamber.
The universe basically built a custom incubator for this broken plant. And the way Ang measures this success is just so charming to me. Well, Ang writes, while I'm still unsure whether roots have started to form, judging by the vibrant leaves, it seems very likely. They didn't dig the plant up to check.
No, that would risk shocking the plant.
Exactly. They
Right.
didn't disturb the soil to look for physical proof. Here's where it gets really interesting. Ang trusts the surface-level evidence. They look at the leaves and deduce what is happening underground.
It is an excellent observation based on pure logic. Think about the physical state of a leaf. Without a root system to act as a pump and supply water, a severed leaf will quickly lose its moisture.
It just deflates and wilts.
Yeah, becomes floppy. For a cutting with its entire leaf structure left intact, the rate of water loss is immense. The only logical way those leaves remain vibrant and rigid over the course of a week is if the stem is successfully pulling water from the soil to replace what's being lost.
So the vibrancy is literal proof that an underground infrastructure is being built. The stem is acting like a straw, which means roots have to be forming to pull that water up.
Exactly that. Ang recognized that the system was working, interpreted the visual data correctly, and had the wisdom to just let it be without interfering.
So if the universe built this perfect incubator and we have vibrant leaves proving it worked, why does Ang end the post by completely rejecting the plant?
Yeah, that's the real twist here.
Because this is a wild pivot. We just spent all this time marveling at the accidental success. The wind broke the plant. Ang lazily jammed it in the dirt. The rain and the sand worked this magical synergy. The roots are growing.
It looks like a massive triumph.
It does. But then Ang hits us with a stark plot twist. Despite the sheer luck and the successful propagation, Ang concludes that the floss flower simply does not suit their gardening style.
It is a stunning reversal. Human nature usually dictates that when we achieve an unexpected success, especially against the odds, we cling to it.
We do. We get so attached.
Right, we become deeply attached to the outcome. But Ang remains entirely objective.
Yeah.
Ang steps back, removes the emotion of the success, and evaluates the long-term reality of maintaining the plant.
And Ang brings receipts, too. They didn't just plant it in one spot, watch it struggle, and give up.
No, they were very methodical.
Yeah, Ang writes, my observations across 2 separate microclimates show that the plant doesn't suit my gardening style. It requires constant watering and can't seem to handle the blazing hot tropical sun.
That methodology is crucial. Ang actively tested the plant's resilience in different localized environments within the garden.
So they move it around to see where it would be happiest.
Yes, they took the time to move this ageratum around, likely comparing a heavily shaded, cooler spot to an area fully exposed to the elements, looking for a place where the plant could thrive without constant intervention.
They really gave this plant a fair shot, and the ultimate conclusion is that this plant, ironically named the floss flower, which sounds so delicate and
It's
soft.
actually quite demanding.
Right, it's a high-maintenance diva, it demands constant watering, and it completely wilts under the blazing tropical sun. It survived a destructive windstorm and a negligent propagation method, but it cannot handle the daily reality of its intended environment.
It is a beautiful irony.
Yeah.
It can survive the trauma, but it can't handle a normal Tuesday.
Oh, I love that. It's like accidentally acing an interview for a highly demanding job you secretly realize you're going to hate.
That's a great way to put it.
You go into the interview completely unprepared, you just wing it, you bypass all the usual prep, you charm the hiring manager, and against all odds, they offer you the position.
And you get that initial high.
Right, for a second you feel this massive rush of validation, you proved you could do it, but then you look at the actual day-to-day reality of the job description.
The daily grind.
Yeah, the commute is brutal, you have to be on call 24/7, and the daily expectations are just going to drain your soul. Just because you have the skills to survive the onboarding process doesn't mean you actually want to deal with the blazing heat of the daily grind.
That analogy perfectly captures the dynamic. If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are really analyzing here is Eng's masterful avoidance of the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, the sunk cost fallacy, yes.
In economics and psychology, the sunk cost fallacy is our tendency to follow through on an endeavor simply because we have already invested time, effort, or resources into it.
Regardless of whether it actually makes sense to keep going.
Exactly. Regardless of whether the current costs outweigh the future benefits.
Like saying, well, I've already come this far, I can't quit now.
Precisely. And in gardening, it is incredibly common. People will spend hours every single day watering, shading, and fussing over a plant that is clearly miserable in its environment, simply because they managed to keep it alive for a few weeks and they don't want to feel like they failed.
They get trashed by their own effort.
They do. But Eng possesses a remarkable level of self-awareness. It takes immense emotional intelligence to succeed at a project, to literally create new life from broken stems, but still objectively conclude that the long-term maintenance required doesn't align with your personal boundaries.
Well,
Eng is choosing peace over pride.
choosing peace over pride, that is so potent.
It really is a profound takeaway.
Aang is essentially saying, look, I am a gardener in the tropics. It gets hot here. I am not going to spend my life running outside with a watering can every 2 hours for a plant that can't handle my reality.
It's a very clear boundary.
It's a profoundly grounded, mature realization. And Aang ends the entry with this wonderful sense of detachment. They write, nevertheless, let's see how they progress in the coming weeks. It's not an angry rejection, it is just an observation.
It is the mindset of philosopher. The outcome is interesting, regardless of whether it results in a permanent addition to the garden.
The experiment itself has value.
Yes, the data has been gathered, the lesson has been learned, and the observation just continues.
So what does this all mean? We started with a destructive tropical windstorm that tore a garden apart. We watched Aang embrace the chaos, utilizing an unconventional, entirely lazy propagation experiment that bypassed the established rules of horticulture.
Breaking all the rules.
And then we deduced how an accidental synergy of heavy rain and sandy soil created a perfect, fast-draining incubator.
A complete stroke of luck.
And we ended with a surprisingly grounded realization about personal boundaries, testing different environments, and knowing when a successful outcome just isn't the right fit for your life. Is an incredible intellectual journey for just a few short paragraphs.
It really is. I think it is vital to reflect on Aang's sign-off at the very end. Till the next post, yours truly, Aang.
Right, we can't forget that context.
Exactly. Remember, this was part 965. This wasn't the dramatic finale of a grand saga. It was just another entry in a massive ongoing ledger.
Just another day in the garden.
It is a reminder of the beauty of adopting Aang's mindset in our own lives, viewing every failure, every broken stem, and every unexpected success as just another single data point in a much longer journey of discovery. The ultimate goal isn't necessarily to build a flawless garden. The goal is to observe, to learn, and to show up for part 966.
The process is the point. And that brings us to you, listening right now. We want to leave you with something to mull over as you go about your day.
Something to apply to your own life.
Think about the floss flowers in your own life right now. Are you pouring constant water and energy into maintaining something, a project, a habit, maybe even a relationship that just doesn't suit your climate simply because you were successful at starting it?
Are you trapped by your own accidental success?
That's exactly it. Maybe it's time to take a page out of Ang's journal, let the wind knock it over, except that it doesn't fit your environment, and see what else can effortlessly grow in your sandy soil.
A beautiful thought to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We always appreciate you taking the time to unpack these fascinating corners of the internet with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep growing. Take care, everyone.